Tonight on Q2, waiting for Yellowstone to reopen.
We've traveled from Alabama to here, and with gas prices and everything, it'd be nice to get to see Yellowstone this time.
From West Yellowstone to Cody, the gates of Yellowstone National Park will once again be open tomorrow. Plus, the horse palace near Laurel saves the day.
Those two Miller men had our backs when we didn't even know we needed help.
17 horses rescued just hours before floodwaters rushed over the land of a Laurel couple. But first, after 9 days, the boil order is lifted in Red Lodge, and it can't come soon enough for restaurant owners.
There's a lot of things in the restaurant business I never think I'm going to do, and then I end up having to do it.
We'll tell you just how hard the last week and a half has been. Your MTN 530 News starts right now. Good evening, and thanks for joining us for your MTN 530 News. I'm Keagan Harsha. Well, finally, some good news in Red Lodge tonight. The water is back on and safe to drink. For more than a week now, that community has been under a boil order, and some have been without any water. Amazon came through in a big way this week, delivering these 2 truckloads of bottled water. Casey Conlon has a closer look tonight, though, at the challenges many have faced, especially business owners.
Big news for Red Lodge on this first day of summer as the city finally takes down its boil order after receiving the all clear in water test from the DEQ. It's a relief for restaurant owners after a very tough week.
We've been using these 2 big pots to boil our water.
And Catherine Wilson is ready to never have to use them again.
Workers that come in the morning and they would spend the first hour just boiling big pots so we can have drinking water and hand washing too. So it's just been hard to keep up with that.
So boiling and then putting them in here, and then we'll leave them in the fridge overnight.
Things have been very different from a normal summer week at the Red Lodge Pizza Company.
Perfect. Well, is that everything?
Can't use our soda machines right now because the water comes from city water, and ice has been a problem too.
They finally got a large shipment Tuesday. 1,000 pounds is sitting in the basement, just in time for them to be able to turn the ice maker back on. But they've at least been open. There are lots of signs around town that say things like, "We'll open as soon as we can," with an unnerving ellipsis attached. Luckily, it seems like that's any day now.
I wanted it to be as safe as possible before we did open.
Sheena Ernst reopened the Wild Table last Friday after making a plan that included hauling water from her house outside of town. That's nothing she hasn't done before.
For weddings, I often have to bring big containers of water, to the middle of the field where there isn't any drinkable water. So we've kind of gotten used to it as a group, just, rolling with it.
Wild Table, this is Sheena.
Ernst says her group feels prepared for anything after the COVID-19 pandemic, but Tuesday's news is still a welcome message.
Things like the espresso machine we haven't had turned on, or the ice maker, and to turn those back on again will be really nice. Now that we have ice, they can do all of our fancy cocktails that everyone likes, like huckleberry lemonade, margarita. Everyone loves that.
An espresso and a margarita. Sounds like summer in Red Lodge to me. Casey Conlon, MTN News.
The southern half of Yellowstone National Park will reopen to visitors tomorrow, and that means the communities of Cody, West Yellowstone, and Jackson are just full of tourists right now who are waiting to get in. Our newest reporter, Penny Preston, caught up with some of them in Cody, which has been very busy during the 9 days of the park shutdown as vacationers have altered their travel plans.
Since last Monday, people who drove to Yellowstone's east entrance saw this and this and this, a clear message that the park is closed. For much of that time, they didn't know if or when it would open. I'm standing at the sign next to Yellowstone's east entrance, 52 miles from Cody, Wyoming. The Gateway community has endured temporary closures before because of wildfires and mudslides.
For me, it's very easy to come at this from an attitude of gratitude. So I am super excited that the park will be opening tomorrow and that we will be seeing, folks guaranteed the opportunity to go in one of 2 days.
Yellowstone officials announced a system that would prevent overcrowding since only the south loop of the park will be open. And the visitors we found were well aware only even-numbered license plates will be admitted on even days, and cars with odd-numbered plates will be admitted on odd dates.
I'm fine with it either way. I mean, we're just at this point hoping that we get in the park since we've traveled from Alabama to here, and with gas prices and everything, it'd be nice to get to see Yellowstone this time.
Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons have always been on my bucket list, and so having to wait was a little bit disappointing. However, I'm still very grateful that we get to go at all.
Some businesses have suffered cancellations, but Cody and its attractions seem to be pretty busy, even while Yellowstone was closed. In the meantime,
we had folks post pictures on a local chat group on Facebook yesterday just of their trip up the North Fork, and it was bears, buffalo, elk, sheep, and so, you know, our animals don't know where the boundaries are.
From Cody and Yellowstone, I'm Penny Preston reporting for MTN News.
As the floodwaters rose last week and people were worried about protecting their homes and their livestock, one Laurel couple just down the road from here received a phone call that saved all of their horses. Joe and Carol Blades own 17 horses on their 40 acres of land in Laurel. Just 1 week ago, they watched as the floodwaters crept onto their property and into their horse pasture, something they've never seen before.
The water kept rising, then we started getting nervous.
This is when they received a call from Bobby and Clayton Miller, the owners of Miller's Horse Palace, asking if they needed help getting their animals out of the pasture. At first, the Blades declined.
And Bobby called me back a little bit later and says, "You better get them horses out of there. We're going to be there in 20 minutes with a horse trailer."
It turns out that decision was made not a moment too soon.
We got a lot of ponies to get out of here.
If they would have been half an hour later, we wouldn't have got the horses out.
The Blades have owned horses for 20 years, and Joe would team rope with them at the Horse Palace. The Blades say the horses would have been fine in the water, but debris from the river knocked down several fences, which means the horses would have gotten out. And so they're very thankful for the help they didn't even know they needed.
Those two Miller men had our backs when we didn't even know we needed help.
Neighbors helping neighbors, and community heroes just doing what they can to help out.
Simple acts of kindness go a long ways in a situation like this.
In Laurel, Haley Monaco, MTN News.
And we're looking to feature more of those community heroes who make Montana so special. If you know someone we should be recognizing right now, send us an email at news@ktvq.com.
We're going to start with the Stockman Bank weather cam out, taking a look towards Yellowstone, where you can see that the levels are still pretty high, but also very green out there. Let's take a look at where we ended up today on the almanac. 74 was the warmest reading, a little bit shy of average for this time of the year, and morning temperatures were pretty typical for the season as well. Still sitting at 2.63 inches, about an inch above where we would normally be by this time in June. So we also had some winds up to 37 miles an hour. River levels, let's start off taking a look at the Yellowstone. You can see all the current levels are far away from flood stage, although we're within a few feet in a couple of locations. And the tributaries where we've had the real concerns, let's take a look at those as well, because regionally we've got a couple of feet. Flood stage is 5.5 around the Livingston area, and then the Absaroka, Stillwater, still pretty high. The concern areas also on the Clark's Fork, you can see where we're within a foot or two of flood stage as we get closer to Belfry. Closer look at the forecast details coming up in a few minutes.
The flooding across southern Montana served as a deja vu moment for one Laurel resident. Luckily, he escaped major damage this time around, but as Matthew Hidalgo reports, he couldn't help but flash back to 2011.
The worries of losing your home to flooding is not something on everyone's mind. A resident here right off the Yellowstone River lost his home back in 2011 due to the flooding, but this time was different.
16.5 is a lot of water.
This property has been Robert Castleberry's little piece of paradise for the past 24 years. But this last week, he thought he might lose it, and for Castleberry, it was a terrible feeling of deja vu.
It was a lot like this year. The river came down, and then it went down. Everybody started cleaning up.
You see, floodwaters also surrounded Castleberry's home back in 2011 following an oil spill on the Yellowstone River. Because of the contamination, his house had to be torn down. This time, Castleberry was better prepared.
The lowest floor in your house has to be at least a foot above the floodplain. Well, my foundation is a foot above the floodplain, and my lowest floor in my house is actually 3 feet above that, so I'm I'm high and dry with my house.
Robert wasn't too worried last week when it came to his house, but when he woke up the morning of the flood, the water was already over the levee in front of his home.
And I said, that ain't good. So I didn't want my pickup in it and all of that stuff, so I jumped in my outfit and run up to my daughter's place and stayed there one night.
Castleberry dodged a bullet this time around, for the most part, but he's come to learn that's just the price you pay living so close to the river.
Oh yeah, my garage is just all my power tools and lawnmower, riding lawnmowers, and just everything in my garage is shot because it got like 3 feet of water in it. Better my garage than my house.
In Laurel, I'm Matthew Hidalgo, MTN News.
And happening just about 30 minutes from now in Fromberg, a community meeting to update residents on flood relief efforts in that community. That meeting starts at 6 o'clock at the Fromberg School Gym. Mayor Tim Nottingham describes the damage to the east side of Fromberg as a disaster, saying 100 homes and upwards of 300 buildings were affected by all that flooding. Again, that meeting starts at 6 o'clock. We'll bring you the full details tonight on the MTN News at 10 o'clock. Well, still to come here on the MTN 530 News on Q2, music to the ears. A new surgery at Billings Clinic gives the gift of hearing to one Montana veteran. And later in sports, the Mustangs kick off a 7-game home series tonight at Dealer Park. Scott gets us ready for all the action in just a bit.
The MTN 530 News continues right after this.